It's midnight on March 4th, 1776, and in Dorchester Heights, Massachusetts, over 2,000 Revolutionary soldiers are making their way up a long, steep hill. It's cold outside, and the soldiers are hungry, tired, and a little scared. But they move steadily over the frozen ground, and with purpose. On the other side of the hill is a clear view of Boston Harbor. Stationed there are dozens of British Navy ships and soldiers who have held onto this pivotal spot for years, including during the Boston Massacre almost 6 years earlier. The American soldiers struggle as they push artillery, cannons, and mortar, all stolen from Fort Ticonderoga 2 months ago. The plan is to use these to attack the ships. To create cover for this mission, not only did the Patriots place piles and piles of hay on top of the hills the previous 2 nights, but they also fired cannons at the ships from other locations. The fire was returned with no casualties thus far. At 5 a.m., as the troops gathered at the top of the mountain, the general in charge called out, "Avenge the death of your brethren." And at that moment, the British Navy, led by General William Howe, finally took notice of the forces on the hills around him. My God, these fellows have done more work in a single night than I could make my army do in 3 months. With no reinforcements coming, Howe realized that they could not win this battle. He commanded his ships to leave the harbor. The fortification of Dorchester Heights was not only a turning point in the American Revolution, but also the first major victory for the newly formed Continental Army. Created on June 14th, 1775, by resolution, the Army amalgamated dozens of militias from the colonies into one central force. This year, the U.S. Army has been celebrating its 250th anniversary, and the publishing team here at AUSA has just released a graphic novel dramatizing the founding of the Army. It's just one in a series we've released over the years, most reenacting the lives of Medal of Honor recipients. Back in February of 2024, we interviewed comic book veteran writer Chuck Dixon about his work on the Medal of Honor series. We received great reactions and comments about the episode, and so we figured that, as a way to commemorate the birthday and the new comic, we'd replay that episode today. Chuck is a great guy, and in the episode, our host talked to him about all of the military-themed comics he's written in his career, dissected the process of creating a comic book, and learned about how the taxman is the ultimate comic book editor. I'm Carrie Varuhaikis, and this is Army Matters.
Welcome back to Army Matters. I am your co-host, and I got a good friend with me today.
Hey, good friend. So what are we talking about today?
Well, we're talking about something fun. Actually, we're going to talk about comic books.
Nice. I love comic books.
Did you read comics growing up?
I did. How about you?
No, I never really did. I don't know if it's because we didn't have money to buy them. There was only like one little store in town that actually sold them.
Yeah.
And they didn't sell many. I
Right.
remember that. It was like a little corner store.
Like corner store?
Yeah, small town.
Right. Did your mom send you to the corner store, go get some butter? Did they call you Danny or Daniel?
Depends. My brothers call me Danny.
Okay.
My mother, if she was upset with me, would call me Daniel.
Daniel.
And then I had a childhood nickname that my mom and dad called me.
What was your nickname?
I'm afraid to say.
Go ahead. We want to know.
It was Booper.
Booker?
Booper. Boop.
Booper. What does that mean? Booper?
I don't know. I guess when I was a baby, I used to go boop, 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 boop.
Okay.
Booper, I guess.
Booper. That's so special. Thanks for
great.
sharing that.
I know.
Yeah. That's cool.
So, did you know
Yeah.
that AUSA has their own comic series?
Yes. I did know before I came to work at AUSA.
That's right. And I bet many of our listeners do not know that, though. We have one of the nation's leading comic writers who helps us create our Medal of Honor series.
That's right.
A new comic about Staff Sergeant Ruben Rivers is being released this month, and he's here to talk about that as well. Now, I'm told this gentleman has written more comic book series than any other American in history,
Really?
period.
Chuck Dixon, welcome to Army Matters.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
So you got time to talk to us? Shouldn't you be like drawing somewhere?
Well, I'm a writer, actually.
You write.
Yeah. I tell the artists what to do.
Oh, that's even better. That's like me telling Dan what to do every day.
There you go.
Yes, that's good.
Yeah. So let's talk about your family experience. As I mentioned in the opening, you talked about military-related comics that you've done, and obviously you help AUSA produce the Medal of Honor series. What's your connection to the military, Joe?
Well, I never served, but, I'm a boomer. So all of our dads were in service in World War II. And in my neighborhood, we had a lot of guys who were combat vets. And my own dad was a bombardier on B-17s with the 8th Air Force over Europe. And they'd have a few beers on the front stoop, start telling war stories.
Yeah.
And I'd always be there listening. It was better than TV. And that created a curiosity in me. So whenever I meet any vet, even recently back from Afghanistan or wherever, I've always got questions. And I've always been curious. I've always wanted to hear their story.
Chuck, my grandfather was a bombardier.
Wow.
On a B-17, probably at the same time as your father was. As a matter of fact, and I know you are from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Yes.
They were from Stroudsburg, Pennsylvania, not too far
okay.
away. Yeah. So they may have met each other.
My dad was a high school, not even a high school dropout. He dropped out of school at 13 during the Depression.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a mechanical genius. And he wanted this Distinguished Service Cross for suggesting mechanical improvements to the Norden bomb site.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Which they made and made it more accurate.
So talent runs deep in the family, and you're going to hear that. Our listeners are going to figure that out today. Now, back to your father, though, before we move on. He had a friend that your father always talked about. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, my dad would always talk about his friend and the horrible things that had happened to his friend over Europe with flak and the horrible things his friend had seen. After my father died, we found out there was no friend. Those were his experiences. Those were things he saw. I guess it was a sense of humility. He didn't want to I'm a big hero or brag or anything like that. But he shared his experiences through this imaginary friend that served with him.
Yeah, that's an incredible perspective.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your literary work and how that came about in your life. You've done incredible amount of writing all across the field too, not just comics, I assume.
Right.
Where did this all start, Chuck? Where did that passion come from?
I was hospitalized a lot as a kid, and everybody would bring me comic books. And I just became immersed in them. They became a second language to me. I can't remember a time when I wasn't reading comics. I mean, even before I could read, I was reading comics. I've never wanted to do anything else. I was exposed to that. I just fell in love with the comic book medium.
So from those days, who was your favorite comic book hero?
Probably earliest one was Batman, and then Spider-Man came along and became my favorite.
Yeah. Do you still have some of those comics today?
A few, not all of them. Not a few.
They're worth a lot of money. They're worth a lot of money, some of them.
Yes.
So Chuck, one of the first comics that you wrote when you started this industry was a series called The Nam for Marvel Comics. Can you tell us your experience in writing that?
The Nam was created by Doug Murray, who was a Vietnam vet. And after a while, they decided to change writers, and they asked me to write it. I was like, I'm not a Vietnam vet. I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I don't feel right doing it. And so my editor said, well, talk to Larry Hama, who is famous as the creator of so many G.I. Joe characters. And he was an editor at Marvel at the time, and he was a Vietnam combat vet.
Mm-hmm.
I told Larry my problem, and Larry said, you'll do the homework, you'll show the respect, he says, I trust you to do a good job on it. So I took it. And it was quite an experience because Wayne Van Zant, who I'm working with on the Medal of Honor comics, he was my artist. And he introduced me to dozens of guys who had served in Vietnam. So I could check facts and hear stories. And that was an incredible experience talking to all these guys on the phone.
So Chuck, another military title you did was called G.I. Joe, which is one of my favorites. Go Joe! How cool was it to write for Duke, Cobra Commander, Snake Eyes, and the rest?
Well, on G.I. Joe, the proudest thing I was is that when IDW decided to do it, that Larry Hama was like, yeah, get Chuck to help. It's such a great ensemble cast.
Yeah.
Each character is so distinct. I always say that Larry created a comic book that, was way better than any toy tie-in comic deserved to be. He really put the work into it and made it something special on its own, not just a gimmick tied to a toy. And so it was a lot of fun working on, with those characters in those situations.
Who was your favorite character to write about and why?
Scarlet ended up being my favorite character to write.
Really?
For a writer, you want tension and suspense, and women are naturally an underdog, especially in a military situation where they're fighting and things like that, which is not to say women aren't tough, but that always makes it a little easier to write. And I especially like when she would exceed the expectations of the enemy. I love a good you don't know who you're messing with story. And and Scarlet is a perfect character for that.
Yeah.
Now, you've written thousands of comics, things like Batman and Punisher and basically everything else. Is there one individual story that stands out as your personal favorite?
My personal best comic of everything I've ever written is Nam number 66. And it's called The Creep. And it's about a Marine sniper. His family farm is lost to back taxes. The taxman basically comes and takes the farm away. And he excels at marksmanship, being a rural guy. And he becomes a top sniper in the Marines. And they assign him to kill Viet Cong tax collectors.
Wow, that's a motivating factor right there.
Yeah. and I should say, when they take the farm, they take everything, including his Winchester rifle.
Oh man!
And the day in the Marines when they make him a sniper and give him his Winchester back is this big moment.
Yeah.
So it's my favorite story of everything, and I wrote it all in one sitting. It came out. It was like God typing through my hands. I just came all out at once. So
I'm just listening to the storyline. I'm like, how do you come up with this kind of stuff?
I think I had just done my tax return. That was the inspiration.
Yeah, that would motivate you. Yeah, I know. I did mine last year, and I wanted to tell the same story myself.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, it's we could talk about this all day, but let's jump into how a comic book is created. Dan, back to you.
Yeah, and we could talk about comic books all day. I'm excited. But Chuck, tell us a little bit, and our listeners, how do you actually build it? Where does it start? I mean, you sit down, get a bunch of people in the room, and you just start writing, or how do you put together a comic book?
Generally, you're put onto a character, and you have to come up with the first story arcs. You talk over your initial stories with an editor, and then once you're in the groove and everybody agrees on what we're doing, then it's just off to the races. But it all begins with me. It begins with that blank screen. And, page one, panel one, and just start writing.
Yep.
From there, it goes to a penciler, and he draws it in pencil. From him, it goes to an inker who embellishes it with ink. It's then lettered by a letterer and colored by a colorist. And then we're done.
What's the interaction like between you and the artist once you've written the script?
What I do looks very much like a screenplay. It has all of the dialogue, even the sound effects. Every artist works a little differently, but generally what the artist does is he'll look over, hopefully read the whole script. I've had artists who will just go page at a time, and that never ends well. So he reads the whole script and then begins breaking down the pages into loose layout form. and generally he'll blow them up to do the finished pencils.
Hey, did you get your AUSA merch yet? Check out our online selection at shop.ausa.org.
Welcome back to Army Matters. Chuck, your next project is on the AUSA Medal of Honor series, this version which focused on Staff Sergeant Ruben Rivers, who's a Medal of Honor recipient. Can you tell us a little bit more about the man?
Ruben Rivers was part of the first African-American armored unit.
Yes.
And, highly decorated, a tough unit, fighting in some of the most bitter fighting in Western Europe in World War II. I mean, they were the point of the spear. I remember a few years ago, I was offered a chance to do a World War II themed project. And one of the ideas I pitched was called Patton's Panthers, about this very unit.
As a kid growing up, the 761st Tank Battalion is what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was one that we studied. And I don't know if it was a comic book or it was just from a history piece. Give us a little bit more about what Staff Sergeant Rivers did so he was awarded the Medal of Honor.
Basically, he was the commander of his outfit, but he led from the front, even to the point of getting out of the tank sometimes to make things happen. Which, it's like, to me, that would be rule number one, don't get out of the tank. He cared so much about his men that he put himself in personal danger over and over and over again. And to the point where he was told to withdraw, but basically said, look, as long as I can see the enemy, I'm going to keep on fighting. It eventually cost him his life because he was going to, cover the retreat of the rest of his unit.
So, Chuck, the artist on this project is Wayne Vansant. I think you worked with him before. Can you tell us a little bit more about him?
Wayne's awesome.
Okay.
We worked on the Nam comic together.
Right.
He was an enormous help. And Wayne is a guy who will do the homework.
Right.
You'll find the right number of buttons on every tunic in a Wayne Vansant story.
Right.
He's got a vast, vast visual library of just about every period of American military conflict. So when I'm writing for a guy like that, I rest easy because I don't have to describe everything to him. I try to provide a lot of visual reference from my artists, but with Wayne, he's got it all.
Now, what kind of research actually goes into a story like this? I mean, it must be more than just using the Medal of Honor citation, right?
Joseph Craig, my editor, does most of the research. Joe gives me the foundation. I mean, and a lot of stuff to look at. If there's videos, he sends videos. If there's audio, he sends audio. So there's a lot to go through. But even then, sometimes I'll look around a little bit on my own, largely to get dialogue, because a lot of times we don't know what these guys said. Was there anything they said that was interesting? And you kind of have to go outside because the citation itself is, you guys know it's real dry. It's not a lot of oomph there for a comic story. So sometimes I got to go looking. And then the process with the historians and the rest comes through and lots and lots of notes. I do more rewriting on this than I ever do on anything else I work on.
Yeah, because you want to be really accurate.
Like the Ruben Rivers story, I wanted him up on that turret with the Madus, and Joe's like, yeah, but that's not really realistic.
Is Joe over editing? Is he? Could we?
No.
We can say
he's got to be accurate though, because
he's keeping it honest. He's keeping me on. I mean, I'm going right for Haunted Tank, Sergeant Rock, because I'm a comic book guy,
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, it's not as dramatic, but it wouldn't look that way.
And for our listeners too, we mentioned Joe's name a few times. Joe Craig. He is our director of our book program here at AUSA and does phenomenal work, not just with the graphic novel series, but with helping people get their work published and editing. And he is an incredible editor. But if you want to poke him a little bit, Chuck, if he's working you too hard or editing you too hard.
No. He's a very patient man. Okay. I mean, he's working with comic book people.
Yeah. Send me a note. We'll take care of it.
No. I'll hold up a help me sign. No,
okay.
He's very patient because it's like herding cats working with comic book people.
I can only imagine.
Chuck, before we let you go, obviously you have passion for doing this. We've talked about several things that you've worked on, military related throughout your career. But which Army military story would you love to tell that hasn't been told yet?
Oh, boy. I would love to do a graphic novel about George Patton during the Mexican expedition. It's a story that doesn't get told very often.
Wow.
It works as a Western and a war story.
Yeah.
Because Patton was a very romantic figure about the American West. And he basically, he was serving as a soldier, but he was also living out a lot of his Western fantasies in Mexico. And it's interesting. It's jaw dropping. Like, no, that didn't really happen. That kind of stuff. And it's a story that needs to be told.
Yeah. I mean, he was portrayed as a very charismatic guy in the movie Patton, obviously. Yeah. So that would be a pretty interesting story. Maybe we'll have to get Joe Craig to commission some work with that with you, Chuck, and we can turn that into a graphic novel series as well.
Yeah.
So you grew up in Philadelphia. I got a couple questions. I'm a Pennsylvania boy myself, born and raised, and it is the greatest state in all of the Union. And are you still living in the Pennsylvania area, Chuck?
No, I'm in Florida now.
Oh, you got to move down to the sunshine, huh?
Yeah,
sunshine. Yeah. But you did grow up there, so I got to ask a question.
I grew up there.
And this is a PA boy question. You'll get it right away.
Okay.
What's your favorite cheesesteak place in Philadelphia?
There used to be a place called C. Kane Pizza, and that was the best cheesesteak.
Yeah.
A lot of people go, do you like Pat's or do you like Geno's?
Yeah.
I don't like either one. They're not real cheesesteaks.
And you know what? You're a true Philadelphia boy. I could tell because you're right. Because all the tourists would tell you Pat or Geno's. No. Hey, and they're not bad places. I'm not knocking them.
They're not bad. They're not, but they're not, those aren't cheesesteaks.
They're not cheesesteaks. No, they're not cheesesteaks. Yeah, mom and pop shop is the best place. Find one. They're all different. They all got their little spin, but it's all in the bread. That's the secret sauce.
Oh yeah.
It's all in the bread.
Yeah, it is.
Well, Chuck, it's been incredible just to spend a little bit of time with you, and thank you for the work you do for us, highlighting the heroic acts and deeds of our nation's heroes of past. And we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you.
Mark your calendars. On September 19th, Central Michigan University proudly presents the 5th Annual General and Flag Officer Leadership Symposium, kicking off at 2 p.m. on CMU's main campus in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. The symposium is free and open to the public, honoring CMU's distinguished alumni who have served and continue to serve in our nation's military. Active and retired senior military leaders will be on campus engaging in dialogue, professional networking, and the exchange of ideas that shape the future of American leadership. Want to learn more? Check out the link in the show notes. To all our listeners, thanks for joining us. AUSA's Army Matters podcast is brought to you by the Association of the United States Army, the U.S. Army's professional association, member-supported, Army-connected. Visit us at ausa.org for more information or to become a member. Your membership helps AUSA continue to carry out its mission, educate, inform, and connect with the total Army, our industry partners, and supporters of a strong national defense. Today's episode was hosted by Lieutenant General retired Les Smith and SMA retired Dan Dailey, and anchor hosted by Carrie Varouhakis. Anthony Del Call is the producer and writer, and Andy Bosnack is the associate producer and supervising sound editor. Ellen Toner is the content editor. Unzinga Curry is the executive producer, and the senior producers are Carrie Varouhakis and LaSharon Duncan. Be sure to subscribe to the Army Matters podcast wherever you find your podcasts, and please leave a review. As you know, we love seeing stars in the Army, especially if it comes in the form of a 5-star review. AUSA's Army Matters podcast can also be heard on Reefs Across America Radio on Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern on the iHeartRadio app, the Odyssey app, and the TuneIn app with the search of the word REAP. For questions or to provide topic recommendations, email us at podcast@ausa.org. AUSA's Army Matters podcast primary purpose is to entertain. The podcast does not constitute advice or services. While guests are invited to listen, listeners, Please note that you are not being provided professional advice from the podcast or the guest. The views and opinions of our guests do not necessarily reflect the views of AUSA. I'm LaSharon Duncan, hoping you have a great Army Day. Hua.